And in vain do they worship me, teaching doctrines and precepts of men. For leaving the commandment of God, you hold the tradition of men, the washing of pots and of cups, and many other things you do like to these. And he said to them, well do you make void the commandment of God, that you may keep your own tradition. For Moses said, honor thy father and thy mother, and he that shall curse father or mother, dying, let him die. But you say, if a man shall say to his father or mother, Corban, which is a gift, whatsoever is from me shall profit thee. And further, you suffer him not to do anything for his father or mother, making void the word of God by your own tradition, which you have given forth, and many other such like things you do. And calling again the multitude unto him, he said to them, hear ye me all, and understand.
Welcome to Analog Catholic. My name
Listen,
is Ben.
I'm Rob. There I am.
What
That
do
was a
we?
nice gap there.
I know. I forgot it was my turn to talk. We can fix it. We can fix it in
Yeah,
post.
no, I won't. That's gonna be so annoying 'cause it's gonna be like right in the beginning, it's gonna be 5 seconds of dead air I would want to cut, and I'm just not gonna do that. People
You
are just
could
gonna
cut
have to
it
be
and make
patient.
it like really just way too close to each other. People will be really confused. Like, why was he mad?
No space at all. Uh,
So what are we talking about today, Robert?
um, Secular holidays, but not civic holidays like Flag Day or Patriots Day or uh, Juneteenth,
The
which is
fourth.
upcoming, but rather uh, Super Bowl Sunday or Black Friday or Cyber Monday. These types of pop culture phenomena, I want to call them, where sort of as a society, we've decided to make these days special. They're ingrained in our cultural consciousness. They are days in which people go through some sort of ritual. Um, and just what does this look like? What does it mean? And how really, like as Catholics, should we navigate these types of situations in our own life? And do we put in the effort to actual authentic Catholic holidays and holy days that we do with these, or do we sort of treat these as like special days that desire or deserve our attention and our efforts, and that yeah generate more of an enthusiasm from us than actual Catholic holidays? So Ben, before we really dive into that, why don't you tell me your favorite secular holiday?
Not civic holidays.
um, no, but if you feel really strongly about one, you can go ahead and say that, so people can start compiling their Ben parasocial portfolio. So whenever they meet you in the streets, they could be like, Ben, I heard today is your favorite holiday, and you'll be like, how do you know that?
Well, what are other ones besides what you listed?
I don't know, man. You think of something.
Like Earth Day.
I think Earth
That's not
Day is a
really.
false, it's a fake news holiday. All right, let me give examples. Okay, I have come. So this is going to be a weird. I'm also not going to give you a new holiday I haven't said already. I have slowly. I don't know if slowly is even the right word. I've basically left following football as a sport. The only sport I really pay attention to now is baseball, and even then, I've gone really slack in it. Um, so for football, to me, I don't care. I'm not the biggest fan of any particular team. Now, my sibling who listens to this might be scandalized by that, since him and my dad are still big fans of a particular football team. But I've just like faded away from football in general. However, I still really like the idea of the Super Bowl being something. You know, the Super Bowl this past year, my wife, it was just my wife and I that watched it, but we had a good time. We made something of it. We ordered some pizza and some wings, and we just sat and we just enjoyed it for what it was. I have a friend who's a diehard Eagles fan, so he was, texting him throughout the game was fun. Uh, but just like, kind of making it a little event, like a little extra special part was fun for me. And I think I was enjoying it more because I stepped away from football as a whole, because the previous team that I would root for was a rival of the Eagles. Naturally, I wouldn't want to root for them. Uh, but I didn't really care, There was no pressure in it. I just enjoyed having a show of it, so to speak. Um, so I
So,
think that would be my particular one. And then maybe Cyber Monday because buying things off Amazon's fun.
so you're saying that the Cowboys have been so bad that you've lost all interest in football.
I would say that Jerry Jones needs to hire a real general manager, hand over the presidency to one of his sons, and just enjoy retirement. But that's neither here nor there.
So again, I get those holidays
Yeah.
because yeah, that's like a very like new man-made tradition based
Hmm.
off of something that is like very unique to American culture. Um, but I feel like beyond that, I don't know. Like the Super Bowl too is like such a unique thing
Hmm.
because like it is like that where it's like people that aren't into football at all are like got to do something for the Super Bowl. Like it
Yeah.
becomes a this needs to be like something I do or something I celebrate.
It's ritualistic, and it's become that in the like I said, we ordered pizza and wings. It's like that's that's the food for Super Bowl. Wings at a minimum, but usually pizza too. Some people do, they grill or whatever. Um, but yeah, there's even if you don't care about sports, there's still some expectation that you're going to care a little bit about the Super Bowl, even if it's just to watch the commercials.
Right.
Um, it's become a very secular, ritualistic holiday. I mean, it's touted as the most watched sporting event, uh, breaking records usually. So yeah, I don't know. Well, they also try adding things like super wild card Saturday or Sunday or whatever, where they try to make it a big deal at the wild card game for football, um, which I don't think is going to take off as much because no one really cares that much about wild card games. So it's 200 teams. Uh, but the Super Bowl itself has become so ingrained as this ritualistic approach to television and recreation, and even like just like family time. Um, yeah, it's just really taken over people's Sundays. Well, that one Sunday. So, what is your favorite secular holiday? We could throw civic holidays in here. I don't care that much about civic holidays. I'll be honest with you. To me, they're more like, you know, days off from work. Um, but yeah, you go ahead and you share yours.
I I don't know. I mean, beyond civic holidays, right? But
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, not to, not to derail the podcast, but what else? What other non-civic secular holidays are there? Like I feel like it's such a limited scope, um, and that makes it so unique because it like has developed from some sort of industry like Black Friday, which there's like a
Yeah.
lot of fake Black Fridays nowadays too,
They've been doing that for years. Where they're
like Prime Day or
yeah, Prime Day, Cyber Monday, and then which Cyber Monday has been around for a little bit longer. But
Small Business Saturday.
yeah, I mean, I guess the thought is maybe it's less specific, like, oh, there's a bunch of these secular holidays that just exist throughout the calendar year, and more of how do we treat these events in our life compared to how do we treat events in the life of the church and what the church calls us to in those. You know,
Right.
and I think that's sort of where the thought is more of, I guess, like a beating against the tide of culture, where Black Friday, Super Bowl Sunday, Cyber Monday, whatever you want to call it, um, there's this sense of it's permeating the culture. It's everywhere. It's promoted everywhere. It's talked about everywhere. It's mentioned in media and art as a thing. Black Friday in particular is used as like a butt of jokes a lot. But we don't do that for any of the Christian holidays anymore, other than maybe Christmas and Easter. But at that point, we're talking now about a gross secularization of Christmas, um, where the meaning of Christmas is so obfuscated. Oh man, I just totally butchered that word. Uh, that you can watch a movie that tries to give you like impose a moral imperative upon you of what the true meaning of Christmas is, and it's actually like, oh, you just like hang out with your family. It's like, oh, the true meaning of Christmas is we love our family, or like we love each other. And it's like, actually, no, it's the nativity of our Lord Jesus Christ who incarnated, you know, and uh came to man, in the great history of salvation. And it's just there's so much more richness there, so much more deepness there, but you don't find it anymore. It's just become, you know, it, how to it's become like a two-faced secular holiday. And by that I mean it's super commercialized. It's become all about materialism and exchanging of gifts and just all of that. And then on the flip side, it's also about how it's not about that, but about family. And so it's like they know it's like they want to silently admit, yes, this materialistic approach to Christmas is bad, but instead of redirecting you to the truth, we're just going to redirect you to like a very sentimental, you know, generic, oh, hang out with your family on Christmas, like spend time with your family on Christmas. And if you guys like hate each other, like maybe don't hate each other for like that one day. Um, yeah. Maybe maybe this podcast episode is not about secular holidays, but the secularization of holidays. Uh, you can go from there. I want to go. I want to give you some time to speak into that, but I'm going to go in a certain direction. I think afterwards, and I think you'll like that direction. But go ahead and respond to that first.
Yeah. So I think like they say like in the quote unquote dark ages, um, the peasants, they worked 140 days out of the year. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
true, but that's what they say.
yeah,
And it was because they would celebrate all these um like saint feast days, and they would
yeah,
get the day off and they would like feast on them and stuff. And so we definitely like lost that um because we work way more than that,
yeah,
but our lives are apparently better than the peasants. Um, and so I think that yeah, like something like the Super Bowl becomes like this, like I must be with my family on the Super Bowl and do all these things. Um, but then like a holy day of obligation, it's like, oh, I got to get to mass at some point.
yeah,
But besides that, like the day's normal. Um, so yeah, like I definitely see that of like we're kind of shifting our focus. And there are other factors, right? Like Super Bowl is on a Sunday, so you don't have to work. But yeah, like I think it's really like cool culturally. Um, yeah, like with my family when we do things like celebrating a random obscure feast day, which isn't really obscure, but it's just stuff that isn't as celebrated. Um, and it's just cool, We just like
yeah.
today's the Sacred Heart. Well, not today, but in a couple weeks actually, or at the point this is uploaded. Kind of be that kind of thing of like the Sacred Heart. Like in our parish, we're doing like all day adoration, and we just like chose the day of like we're gonna do something a little bit more,
Yeah,
um, and kind of invite families to be a part of this. And I think that's really cool. And again, there's so many Catholic feast days, right? And I don't think anybody in the American world, regular middle class working people, can get away with only working 140 days a year. But like, there's definitely ways we can kind of pivot to
yeah,
acknowledge these things more. Um, a priest friend of ours, a mutual priest friend, he would always say, like, whenever it was like a solemnity or something, or even like some of the minor feasts, he would be like, it's a feast day, like, celebrate today, like, eat some cake was always
right.
his go to thing, right? And it's like, well, that's silly, but like I eat cake all the time. Like not all the time, but just the thought of like, yeah, why don't I start being intentional about when I eat cake, you know? If I'm gonna eat
Hmm.
cake once a week, why don't I put it on whatever the feast day is of the week, you know?
Right.
I don't eat
Yeah.
cake once a week, but I'll have like, I'll have dessert definitely once a week, you know? So like that kind of thing of like kind of aligning our day-to-day life with the liturgical calendar. And I think that's beautiful.
Yes, and I agree. And the liturgical calendar is wonderful, and celebrating on a feast day or solemnity with a little bit of something to indulge yourself in, I think is good. Um, I mean, we have Sundays every week if there's no other feast day, but June is like loaded this year with I think 6 or 7 solemnities. It's a big month for feasting, um, which is good. I want to kind of, yeah, yeah, I think just take what you're saying, like focusing your day on the holiday and the feast day of taking the time there. It really is also meant to draw your mind to what the feast is about, right? So, like the Sacred Heart, obviously about the Sacred Heart of Jesus, about the mercy of Jesus. The devotion to the Sacred Heart came about sort of as a counter to the Jansenists, who were like super dogmatic, rigid uh, Catholics who, yeah, gave no room for error in terms of salvation. Um, we have the Feast of the Holy Trinity tomorrow. At least regarding this recording, it's tomorrow. Uh, we just had Pentecost. We just had Mary Mother of Church. We're gonna have, the not the baptism of John the Baptist, the Nativity of John the Baptist, coming up shortly as well in this month. There's just a lot to celebrate, and it's not just about celebrating for celebration's sake, but celebrating like the goodness of what these feasts represent. And I think that's where the trouble with like the secular holidays are kind of coming in. And like, yeah, there's only maybe like two major ones you kind of name. Uh, but like, look at what they center you on. Like the Super Bowl is about watching television, and you could say like, okay, enjoying sports is good, but again, there's a huge push for the commercials, which is all about sell. It's like selling material to you. It's about consumption. It's about eating a lot. It's about drinking a lot. It's about indulging your senses, really like all your pleasure senses, as much as you can, just to like celebrate what this big game is. Like that's the center of it. Sure, you could say that no, the center of the Super Bowl is the game itself, and like maybe when it first started, it was, but it's become such a cultural staple. It's now taken on its own sort of identity, which is just consumption. Right, at its root, that's what it is. And same with Black Friday, consumption, wrath, envy, greed. Like that's what you're celebrating. Oh, this is on sale. Let me stampede through a store so I can get it with no care to other people's safety. And just because I need to have the latest tech, or I need to have this, or because Christmas is coming up and Christmas is now all about gifts and materialism, like I need to indulge in that at this time because it's, you know, this is when things are cheapest, so I can buy the most. So holidays, as fun as they are for rest, which I would say civic, secular, and Catholic holidays all have in common, what they themselves center on and what they focus on is totally different and really at odds with each other. Um, Ben and I have read a book recently, and we're gonna probably do a review episode later because we don't want to turn Analog Catholic into a review exclusive situation here. But it's called Lord of the World, fantastic book. And one of the parts of the book that's highlighted is how they've abolished basically any form of actual religious worship, and they've replaced it with these quarterly. I think they say they do it weekly on Sundays as well, but the major quarterly feasts which celebrate like paternity, maternity, I think abundance, and then something else that I forgot. And the whole point of it is to like just celebrate these material aspects of these things. So it's not paternity like God the Father, it's paternity like man. And it's not maternity like Mary, Mother of God, but of woman. Um, and I mean, it's great because when you get the details of the ceremonies, it's clear that they've just taken the image of Christ, the image of Mary, and like repurpose them for these things. but the whole point is like that's what their life is not focused on, the celebration of man triumphant, the celebration of woman triumphant, as opposed to God triumphant. Um, and and it's just the recentering of man's mind and heart to something else. And so when we look at what does a holiday do, well, yes, it gives us rest, but it's also trying to tell us to celebrate whatever the holiday is. So, 4th of July, obvious celebration of like, right, the independence of America from Great Britain. Memorial Day, right, the celebration of, or the remembrance of, rather, like soldiers that have lost their lives in war. Um, Labor Day, like it's just supposed to be, take a rest from all your labor. I'm sure there's some sort of communist origin to that one. Um, but it's not just rest, and it's not just what do we do on those days. It's what is the purpose of the holiday itself. Because by celebrating it as a holiday, you're saying this is worthy of celebration. This is a really good thing. And so when we as a society make really big deals about something like the Super Bowl or Black Friday or I don't know, whatever else we would celebrate, it's us saying this is what we prioritize. This is what we put at the center of our personal lives, but also at our cultural life of our nation.
Right. And it like especially with the secular holidays, um, or like the civic holidays, like they are weird, right? Like nobody
Yeah.
knows what Labor Day is about. And even like Juneteenth, even though, it's people know about it because it's more of like a modern discussion.
Yeah.
Um, like no, like maybe some people, but nobody's like taking the day off and like, you know,
Reflecting on,
reflecting on the freeing of the slaves or
yeah.
whatever, right? Like, and so it's such like a weird thing. And like 4th of July, like yes, like we all know what it's about. Like that's I think a clearer one, but like what do people like people do ritualistic things on 4th of July, but they're not really related to independence. But like I guess in that way, I do think there's like a beauty in that of like you're just celebrating the concept.
Yeah.
Uh Same with like Memorial Day. It's like there's definitely like I mean, I think that one maybe there's more of a focus on the concept of it, but it is also like people just like get together and have barbecues, which is like good, like family time, and ideally like there's some reflection on the concept. Um, but like civic holidays are like forced upon us, which is interesting. Like we have like I get Juneteenth off, and I didn't realize it until like yesterday, and so it's like I just get the day off.
Mhm.
Um, and that's awesome, right? Like I love to, have a day off, right? But versus like a religious holiday, in order to make it happen or to like celebrate it with like a fullness, like you have to like take your day off yourself. Or like there's a way to celebrate it if you're still working, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I know of like there's Catholic companies, which is really cool, where they'll like maybe forego some of the less necessary civic holidays and give their people like a feast day off,
Yeah.
that is important to the company's mission or whatever, like stuff like that.
Yeah. And that's a good point that I was going to get into too, which is just if you are, um, if you're a church, if you're a parish, if you're a diocese, if you are like an explicitly Catholic company or an apostolate, I think it's very important. And I don't say this selfishly because it would affect me, affect me in a positive way. I say this because I generally think it's true. When you are looking through your upcoming calendar year and you're thinking, okay, what days do I give off to my employees? If you don't want to just give them more days off by giving them these holidays off, then whatever, like switch it around, deprioritize some of the civic holidays then. But at a minimum, in my opinion, every holy day of obligation should be a day off. Right? Holy days obligations are supposed to be treated like Sundays in terms of work. And so if you have the Ascension on Thursday, right, which like the real Catholic diocese in this country do, um, like that should just be a day off. If you work at a parish, if you work at a chancery office, you work in a diocese, you work for an apostolate, that should just be a day off. Um, the assumption should just be a day off. And of course, like I said, like I know I'm kind of like it might sound selfish coming from my perspective because I work for the church. Um, but I genuinely think like if you're here to emphasize the importance of this, you need to lead by example. And so if we're going to tell all of the faithful, you need to make time in your day to go to these masses because they are obligations, then you need to do what you're capable of making sure more people can go than not. And so that includes giving your own employees time off to actually celebrate the holidays, the holy days, which is where the holiday comes from. Um, in a lot of places they'll do, because Easter is always on a Sunday, so you'll get like Easter Monday off. Or some places will do like starting Thursday, like Holy Thursday to Easter Monday, you'll get off. Um, some places will do like a couple days before and after Christmas or whatever. Like they'll add these extra days in to buffer those holidays because for us, it's not just the day, like, but like a season and like a handful of days where you should get more time off because you're celebrating longer. But I think yes, at a minimum, if you're gonna have holy days, you just need to give that as a day off to your employees. Um, it's not going to kill you. It's not going to grind the church to a halt. And if you're an apostolate and you're so dependent on constant work that one extra day off a year is going to sink you, you got other problems going on. So I think when we look at this and we think, how do we change the culture? You change the culture by being the culture. And if we can't, as Catholics, live out and promote a certain type of culture that we're trying to also impose on others, like then we just come off as either hypocrites or we just show that it's impossible to do. You know, man, work is made for man, not man for work. And so, again, I know it kind of sounds selfish from coming from, and I understand that and biased, but I think it's good for man to have time for leisure. I think the Catholic Church philosophically understands that and agrees with that. But in practice, you have to wonder, like, where is it going? And I'm saying this, I've had conversations with plenty of other people that work for the church, and there are definitely people who take too much leisure time while they're working. Um, but this is not about that. This is about simply leading the charge in the culture and showing, like, hey, it's actually okay to take a few extra days off a year. And it's good because those days are dedicated to God and they're dedicated to celebrating these specific feasts. Um, and like that's what you can do. Like as leading the charge as a parish or as a diocese, as an apostolate, like you can say, hey, you get off from work on the Ascension. Um, but as much as you can kind of like enforce this, like the expectation is you're celebrating the Ascension. You go to mass. You don't just not go to mass and just take a day off, right? You actually celebrate the feast. You do this, and like that's sort of that both ways. I trust you to do what's right when I give you this day off, um, kind of situation. But I think that's important. It matters, right? Because a lot of people are quoting what you were saying earlier about, oh, medieval peasants only worked this many days a year and like da 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 da. And it's like, yeah, it's true. It's true. But yeah, that's just that's just my thoughts on how we can approach kind of countering um, that overbearing approach to materialistic holidays or like
Right.
civic holidays that mean like one thing or the other, or we don't know what they mean. It's like doesn't really matter. It's just a day off. It's like, well, we'll also give you days off, but it's going to be about these major feasts and the importance of them.
Right. Yeah, and as a cog in the machine out there, um, like people, yeah, again, like there are ways, you can have a special dinner on, you know, a feast day. Like even if you have to work, you can make it intentional for your family.
Yeah,
Um, a lot of people get floating holidays, right? For some of the civic holidays,
yeah,
maybe you
yeah.
can move one of those floating holidays to a special feast day. Um, so yeah, definitely ways to do that, without having to like demand an extra 10 days off a year from your employer, which is maybe, like, depends on your situation. Maybe you can give it a shot. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, I wouldn't go to, like, if you if you work civically, it's sorry, or secularly, sorry, but if you work for the church or an apostolate, I wouldn't go banging on your boss's door demanding to have off on holy days. The probably won't be a big fan of that. But I am sort of inviting various people that have that ability to like think on that and think, yeah, does it really like do you really need that one extra day this month? Do you really need it? And I mean, if there's something that like absolutely needs to get done, sure. But then just have that be the thing that gets done. Don't make it a full 8 hour day and force people to like do a normal shift. If it's just like, well, you only really need to do this thing, great. Let them come in for an hour or two and do that thing, and then they can go home, right? Like flexible. We live in such a rigid society when it comes to work, which is part of American Protestant history, um, where it becomes like work is just good because working is good, and there's no other deeper meaning to that. It's like you just must be working. Um, and we can probably get into a whole thing about work and leisure, and well, we kind of have done that already, like holy leisure. But uh, yeah, it's just like this idea of like menial work is the work you always need to be doing, and it's like no, you sometimes also need leisurely work to be doing for a healthy society and healthy people.
Right.
All right, do you have any other last thoughts on secular holidays? Which this conversation kind of like went in a bunch of different directions.
Um, I don't think so. Well, I guess to just throw in because we mentioned March Madness.
We did.
I well, maybe when you texted me about it.
Yeah,
Um, I think I'm not a March Madness guy,
yeah,
but I think it's super cool um, that the church has like large liturgical seasons, right? Like Lent, Easter,
yeah, mhm,
Christmas, Advent, that kind of thing. But then also like they designate each month to a specific mystery,
yeah,
um, and that's super fun.
yeah,
So it, yeah. So think about that.
yeah, yeah. Think about which month it is right now, June.
June,
What does the church celebrate on June? Sacred Heart.
Sacred Heart of Jesus.
That's right.
July, the body of Christ.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Corpus Christi feast.
That's true. Well, that's not in July this year.
No, but if
But
it was, it'd
March,
be great. Hey,
but March is Saint Joseph.
he's
So
in there.
yeah. So
May
don't
is Mary. She's in there.
don't say don't say March Madness. Say March Joseph.
All
Sweet.
right. I'm Rob,
I'm Ben,
and this has been
Analog Catholic.